following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers, this is the Tiafangi coming to what will hopefully be a successful review, and today we're going to be taking a look at a Transformers action figure that was actually two characters made into one. And it is the Transformers Leader Class as a Shattered Glass Ultra Magnus figure. Now the reason why this figure is two figures in one is because this figure comes with two different head sculpts, and the different head sculpts make this single Transformers action figure become two completely different characters. And as the title of the video shows, I am actually going to be using this as the alternate character that this figure is supposed to become, which is the Diaclone version of Ultra Magnus, who was turned several years ago. Actually, I think it might have been almost a decade ago. Into the Transformers character of Delta Magnus, named by Takara Tomy. So yes, rather than doing Shattered Glass Ultra Magnus from the Siege mold and doing Delta Magnus from the Earth mode Kingdom version of Ultra Magnus, Hasbro and Takara Tomy decided to take the Kingdom Ultra Magnus figure and design two different head sculpts for it and have it double as two different characters. So, since this action figure officially is supposed to be the Shattered Glass version of Ultra Magnus, it comes packaged with the Shattered Glass Magnus head attached to it, and here on the side of the box we have some artwork of what the Delta Magnus head is supposed to be invoking. And another reason why there's two different head sculpts that come with this action figure, and you're designed to swap them out if you want, is because in the Transformers Shattered Glass comic books, Ultra Magnus was tortured by Shattered Glass Optimus Prime, and his face became deformed and disfigured. So you can take the head sculpt that's the same as Kingdom Ultra Magnus, and you can then swap it out with this more horrifying looking face sculpt, which is a more skeletal face, which has the exposed teeth and the dissolved deformed face sculpt, which is how Ultra Magnus looked after Shattered Glass Optimus Prime was through torturing him. But because the paint scheme between Shattered Glass Ultra Magnus and Delta Magnus is almost virtually identical, Hasbro and Takara Tomy decided that the version of this figure, when the Kingdom Ultra Magnus head sculpt is attached, that it could double as the Diaclone Delta Magnus figure / character. So that's what I'm going to be using this figure as, is Delta Magnus. I have a lot more attachment to Delta Magnus ever since I found out the character existed than I do for Shattered Glass Ultra Magnus. And this figure doubling as two completely different Transformers characters in this same action figure. Magnus here, as far as I can remember, he was the first Transformers figure released in Wave 2 of the Transformers Shattered Glass line, and what this figure has done, it's created a phenomenon where the other Transformers Shattered Glass action figures double as different Transformers characters. Specifically, after this figure was released, two of the deluxe class figures released in Wave 2 of the Shattered Glass line, they double as both Shattered Glass and non-Shattered Glass as G1 Transformers characters. One prime example here is the character of Shattered Glass Slicer with his partner Exosuit. Slicer was one of the Decepticon Action Masters in the Generation 1 line, and Hasbro and Takara Tomy decided, rather than release him either in the Generation Selects line or in the Velocitron Speedy 500 line or the Buzzworthy Bumblebee line, to just release it in the Shattered Glass line and say that this guy is, if you want this guy to be Shattered Glass Wheeljack, you just have to apply the name to him. And even more so than Slicer, another Transformers figure I'm trying to turn around to see where I put it. Of course, it's under another box, but setting these aside, right, so I can get to it. Of course, that was the wrong one. But even more so than Slicer, another Wave 2 Shattered Glass figure that doubles as both a non-Shattered Glass and a Shattered Glass character is Flame War. Hasbro and Takara Tomy decided, rather than releasing Flame War in either the Generation Selects line or in the one of the other Legacy exclusive lines, such as the Velocitron or Buzzworthy lines, they decided to just release her in the Shattered Glass line. And so the idea with Slicer and Flame War is similar to Ultra Magnus doubling, Shattered Glass Ultra Magnus doubling as Delta Magnus. These figures double as both the Shattered Glass and non-Shattered Glass versions of these characters, and so if you want Slicer and also Flame War to be the non-G1, the non-Shattered Glass G1 versions of them, then all you have to do is put a Decepticon faction, a purple Decepticon faction logo over the pink ones that they have painted on them right here. And that's one thing to note about Shattered Glass Ultra Magnus here. I don't know how my camera's gonna show it there inside the box, but the solitary Autobot logo that's painted on this figure, rather than being purple, which is the evil color for Transformers, or being red, which is the heroic color, it's actually a shade of pink, so it can double as both a Shattered Glass and non-Shattered Glass figure. And so for me personally, I don't like the idea of having these Shattered Glass figures double as non-Shattered Glass characters. Would have preferred if we gotten the non-Shattered Glass versions of these characters in the Generation Selects line, but regardless, I can live with the fact that because these figures can double as non-Shattered Glass characters, that's what I'm going to be using them as. Here on this side of the box, you've got the same image of the artwork here on this side. I got the same image here on this side. Coming on here to the back of the box, you've got your product photos. The inner robot transforms into the tractor cab of the truck in just 16 steps, and then in just 12 steps, and then the tractor cab, when it combines with the trailer in vehicle mode, that takes 16 steps to transform, and transforming the entire figure, both tractor cab, /inner robot, and trailer to form the main robot here, takes up to 21 steps. So there's a lot of steps in forming this Transformers action figure. However, if you already have the Kingdom version of Ultra Magnus, or even the Siege version of Ultra Magnus, like I do, if you have any previous version of this mold, then the transformation is easy enough to remember. And there's a photo up there showing the alternate head, which is the same head sculpt used on Kingdom Ultra Magnus, which is the head sculpt I'm going to be using. And yes, I really enjoy the fact that this figure doubles as Delta Magnus. I'm contemplating, I do have some spare Autobot faction logo stickers. I'm contemplating if I'll put a red Autobot logo over the pink one that the figure has officially painted on its shoulder to make this a true non-Shattered Glass Delta Magnus figure. But regardless, I'm thrilled to have this figure because I've been wanting an action figure of Delta Magnus for the last several years, ever since the Masterpiece figure was released in the East by Takara Tomy. I've always liked the idea of Delta Magnus being a look-alike Autobot to Ultra Magnus in body design. And infamously, in the first original trailer for the Transformers Generation 1 movie back in 1986, in the footage of the cartoon footage for the commercial of the film's trailer, Ultra Magnus was depicted showing in his Diaclone color scheme of red, navy blue, and black. So, if you wanted to make a joke about it, you could argue that Delta Magnus appeared in the trailer for the Transformers Generation 1 movie, since producers who animated that commercial at the time had no idea that Hasbro was going to change Ultra Magnus's paint job from this to this. So, Ultra Magnus is one of the main examples of how the paint job he originally had in the Diaclone own line drastically varies from the final paint job he had when he was turned into an actual Transformers character. And on that note, Ultra Magnus was in fact one of the last Transformers action figures from Takara Tomy's Diaclone robot line that was turned into a Transformers character. So without further delay, let's get this guy out of the box. And I am going to permanently remove the Shattered Glass head and put the Delta Magnus head on here, because this figure is going to be Delta Magnus for me henceforth. And let's take a close look at him as, once and for all, as Delta Magnus in robot mode. Alright, and so here is the figure out of the box in the robot mode, and for the accessory pieces, you get the same ones that came with Kingdom Ultra Magnus of the two rocket launchers that sit here on the shoulders. You've got the large laser gun. I believe it's the same shade of red plastic that Kingdom Ultra Magnus' laser gun is made of. It's a slightly darker shade of red on Kingdom Ultra Magnus, but the main difference between the laser guns on both on Kingdom Magnus and this figure is that this figure's laser gun is unpainted red plastic, and Kingdom Ultra Magnus' laser gun is painted gunmetal gray all over. For those of you with a keen eye will notice that my Kingdom Ultra Magnus does have additional weapons accessory pieces to him. I gave him the laser gun parts that came with Netflix Bumblebee because Netflix Bumblebee didn't really have storage spots for them, and I figured out a way that I could use this for Kingdom Ultra Magnus to store his laser gun on. I may do the same with Creatures Collect Goldbug, give his laser gun accessories to Delta Magnus here, but I'm really thrilled with how this figure came out. And yes, I'm going to be calling this figure Delta Magnus throughout the rest of the video. I did swap out the head, so this one has the same head sculpt as Ultra Magnus here. The Shattered Glass head, I will show it off right now. It is pretty freaky looking. I apologize for the sunlight coming in through my bedroom window, making it glare a lot. But if you want this figure if you want to have both Delta Magnus and Shattered Glass Ultra Magnus in your Transformers collection, the reason why I went on earlier in the video about why I hate how these Wave 2 Shattered Glass figures double as both Shattered Glass and non-Shattered Glass Transformers figures is that if you want to have both characters here, then you do have to get a duplicate copy of the figure to use both head sculpts and have both characters at the same time. Another accessory piece you get with this figure is you get the same Matrix of Leadership that you get with the Legacy G2 Laser Optimus Prime and Scourge figures, which is also the figures where you get the other new accessory piece of the sword weapon. This is the same sword that came with Legacy G2 Laser Optimus Prime and Velocitron Speed of 500 Robots in Disguise Scourge or Black Convoy. Unlike the sword weapons that came with those two figures, years where Laser Prime's sword was blue plastic, Scourge's sword was done in pink plastic. Here on Delta Magnus, it's done in clear red plastic, so it does pretty well match up the shade of red plastic that's used here on these figures. One thing I will do, you want note about swapping out the head sculpts, depending on which head you want to do. I do recommend that you obtain a tiny screwdriver to loosen the screw on the back of the head so you can get it in and on. You could potentially just pop out the heads if you want, but the ball joint is just barely thick enough that if you pop the head off, you can either break the head or break the ball joint that holds the head in place. So I do recommend if you want the Delta Magnus head on this figure instead of the Shattered Glass head, I do recommend you get a small screwdriver in order to do a proper head swap. But yes, I am thrilled to finally have an action figure of Ultra Magnus in his Diaclone robot colors. Again, Takara Tomy turned the Diaclone version of Ultra Magnus into the character of Delta Magnus, so I'm really thrilled with how he came out. I've always enjoyed the color scheme on Delta Magnus, where it's red, navy blue, and black. Again, if you have Kingdom Ultra Magnus, it has the same amount of articulation. The head is on a ball joint, so it can look up and down about a few centimeters. It can spin in left and right 360 degrees. Shoulders can rotate clockwise and counterclockwise 360 degrees. The arms can go forward, inward, and outward at the lower part of the shoulder. Swivel joint in the bicep, hinged elbows, and wrist swivels that can spin 360 degrees clockwise and counterclockwise. You do have a waist swivel. You do not have a waist swivel due to how the figure transforms into the large robot, but you do have universal jointed legs. Hips is what I meant to say. The legs can unfortunately only go outwards this far due to the enormous caboose that this figure has on its backside. The legs can go outward move the arms out of the way. They can go outward this far, so the figure has the potential to do a full splits. Which is surprising considering the hip joints are hindered by a lot of the kibble. The legs can go forward this far, so you do have a 90-degree kick forward. Already have a swivel joint in the upper half of the thigh. You do have a hinged knee, but the best angle is when you lift the leg upward like this, because if you try and move it back, again, this figure's enormous buttocks is going to get in the way of the leg articulation. You do have ankle rockers, so if you want to get this figure into an even more sprawl-legged pose than you can now, you do have the ability to do that. No motion in the toes or in the heel spurs, since it's one fixed piece. And on that note, unfortunately, if you do bring the legs together, it will be standing on the outer edges of the feet, so you cannot get this mold into an upright standing position. So that's one of the only gripes I have with this figure. But overall, I'm really thrilled with how it turned out. There is a decent amount of light piping here on Delta Magnus, but again, it's very small, so unless you get a bright flashlight to shine through it, the eyes really won't light up too significantly. But yeah, I really enjoy seeing him standing here next to Kingdom Ultra Magnus. I love the difference in paint jobs between these guys. And again, because this figure is designed to be a Shattered Glass Ultra Magnus and Diaclone Robot Universe Delta Magnus, the Autobot logo, instead of being purple or red, it's actually a shade of pink. It might actually be a shade of magenta now that I'm looking at it, but if you want this guy to be a true Generation 1 Diaclone Universe Delta Magnus figure, you can, and have the option of putting a solid red Autobot logo over the existing one. And one thing to note about Delta Magnus is that half the parts of him that are black, it's actually paint. The shoulder towers are made out of red plastic, and they're painted black on top. Same thing with the rocket launchers. They're painted, actually, I noticed this when I was putting them in the shoulder. The rocket launchers that you attach to the shoulders, they're actually made, let's see if I can get it on here, show you guys. They're actually made out of the same blue plastic that Delta Magnus's torso and legs are made of. The launcher part is painted over completely black, while the rocket tips themselves are actually painted red. So why in the world they didn't just make those parts black plastic and just paint the rocket tips red like they did with Ultra Magnus's shoulder rockets, where they're made out of white plastic and the tips of the rockets themselves are painted red? I honestly have no idea. One paint app Kingdom Ultra Magnus has over this figure where it's beat is that the tires of Ultra Magnus's alternate mode are painted gunmetal gray. Granted, it's almost the same shade of gray that the black tires are made out of, and the wheels here on this figure are unpainted. I may risk it and put my paint skills to the test about painting the hubcaps silver so there's actual wheels and tires on here, but the hubcaps themselves, they're indented so much I may just leave them unpainted, but that's just a minor nitpick I have with this figure. I wish they would have painted the wheels on here, but considering all the paint apps that this figure has, I can see why they didn't. The blue chest section is paint. It's actually made out of clear red plastic, and the waist and the larger combined robot, that side of the pelvis is actually black paint. I think it's I can't tell what shade of plastic it is. It might be the same dark gray plastic used on the other side. But I do enjoy how this figure turned out, so with the risk of repeating myself any further, let's get this figure transformed into the inner robot and see how the inner robot looks. Oh yes, before we continue, I forgot to mention this. The reason why I don't have the Matrix of Leadership stored inside the chest is because of the main gripe I have with the Matrix of Leadership being included with this figure. There is no place to store the Matrix of Leadership. I did mention it's the same matrix that comes with Laser Prime, and Scourge, but unfortunately there is no proper storage for the Matrix of Leadership. I wish they would have retooled the chest somehow on the inside so that the Matrix of Leadership could be stored in there, but there is no connection post whatsoever on getting the Matrix of Leadership stored inside there. I would have enjoyed it if they had gone the extra mile and had done one retooled part where the Matrix of Leadership could be held. It's a nice reference to the Generation 1 movie where Optimus Prime actually gave Ultra Magnus the Matrix of Leadership, wanting him to be the next Autobot leader. And I've always personally considered the idea that Delta Magnus could possibly have been a Matrix bearer in an alternate timeline of the Diaclone Universe. But it's also, the Matrix of Leadership is also included to reference the fact that in the Transformers Shattered Glass comic books, Ultra Magnus tried to take the Matrix of Leadership from Optimus Prime by force, and he was unsuccessful as well. But that's just one of the main gripes I have with this figure. There's no proper storage place for the Matrix of Leadership. If I even looked at the instruction sheet, and it shows no pictures or images showing a storage spot for the Matrix of Leadership. I may leave it inside the chest and just let it rattle around in there, because there is enough space inside the chest of the inner robot for the Matrix of Leadership to go. We'll see as time goes by. Alright, so here is the inner robot. I apologize for not getting the sunlight out of my video earlier, but yeah, here's the inner robot for Delta Magnus or Shattered Glass Ultra Magnus, whichever of the two characters you prefer this figure to be. And you could incorrectly call this black and navy blue Optimus Prime if you desire. That's what everyone does with Ultra Magnus's inner robot. Everyone incorrectly calls him white Optimus Prime or albino Optimus Prime. So here's the inner robots for these two figures standing side by side with each other. I did not see this in any of the previous reviews I had seen, so if I've watched your review of Shattered Glass Ultra Magnus and didn't notice it, I apologize, but the inner robot does have it's very hard to see, but it does have a pink Autobot logo right there on the shoulder, and it's almost the exact same shade, almost the exact same color as the blue plastic used here on the inner robot, so I had no idea it was there. Here. And again, because this figure is designed to be both Shattered Glass Ultra Magnus and Diaclone Universe Delta Magnus, the faction logos, it's actually pink instead of purple or red, so it can be used as both a Shattered Glass and non-Shattered Glass action figure. And I do not like that idea at all of having both a Shattered Glass and non-Shattered Glass figure, having two separate characters be in the same figure. But regardless, I do enjoy how the paint job came out. It is very accurate to the inner robot of the original Diaclone Ultra Magnus figure. The only other figure I'm aware of that's used the inner robot for the Diaclone version of Ultra Magnus was, I believe, the Transformers the Takara Tomy exclusive repaint of the 2006 Transformers Classics Optimus Prime figure that was repainted into the inner robot based on the Diaclone robot version of Delta Magnus, and I believe the inner robot, Takara Tomy gave it the name of, I almost had it the other day, I believe it was Magnus Convoy. Yeah, Magnus Convoy was the name given to the inner robot. And then, of course, because it was a repaint of the classics Optimus Prime and Ultra Magnus figure, the third-party company Fans Project made a trailer designed to match up with the Magnus Convoy inner robot, so you could create Delta Magnus with that third-party trailer on that classics mold. So that's one of the motivators for me to get this figure and add it to my Transformers collection, is because this is only the third version of the Optimus Generation 1 Optimus Prime mold, to put it bluntly, that has the navy blue and black paint job. This is only the third inner cab robot of Delta Magnus, to also put it bluntly, that has been created and released, and it's the first one to be released officially by Hasbro here in the United States. So I'm really thrilled to see these two standing side by side with each other. other. Articulation's the same if you have Kingdom Ultra Magnus, and most of the joints on the inner robot are the same ones that were used on the larger combined robot with the trailer, so I won't go into articulation too much. Let's get these guys transformed into their vehicle modes and wrap up the review. Alright, so here is Delta Magnus transformed into his vehicle mode, and it's the same car carrier truck that Kingdom Ultra Magnus transforms into, but one of the main differences is that because he now comes with the same sword that came with Laser Prime and I'm and Black Convoy, a.k.a. Scourge, you can urge the best weapon storage is to rotate the handle of the sword 90 degrees and insert it into the 5mm post here on the back of the trailer, and then you put the laser gun on the other 5mm peg on the roof here up top. So that's the best weapon storage for this figure. What I like to do on Kingdom Ultra Magnus is put his laser gun here on the back, and this is one of the reasons why I said at the beginning of the review that, just like with Kingdom Ultra Magnus, giving him Netflix Bumblebee's laser gun, I might do the same with Delta Magnus and give him a Creatures Collide Goldbug's laser gun, is because the silver gun barrels that came with Netflix Bumblebee's cannon, I attached them to the sides of Ultra Magnus's robot mode fists, which stick out in vehicle mode, and they become a pair of laser guns that sit on opposite sides of the tractor cab. Because without those pieces there, you can blatantly see the hands and sticking out there on the inside of the vehicle mode, and it also fills that gap just a little bit. So I might do the same here with Delta Magnus. One thing you can do if you want is you can rotate the laser gun around if you want, but unfortunately with the sword now here, it will be sticking upward at a side angle. So you can put these on opposite ends of the trailer if you desire, but I wish they would have designed a better weapon storage for the sword. If you wanted to, you could put the sword, detach the sword, or I was going to say put it in a different spot, but all the other 5mm ports that are on this figure, it would be either at an awkward angle or off to the side and sticking out a lot. So unfortunately, this is the best weapon storage for all of the accessory pieces Delta Magnus comes with. But overall, I do enjoy how the figure came out, and I do enjoy the paint job. The trailers, they are different shades of blue. Kingdom Ultra Magnus is more of like a metallic blue, while Delta Magnus is a solid, bright, vibrant blue. I just said blue. I meant shade of blue, plastic. So my camera is making them look identical to each other, but you can see it right there. This figure being a much brighter shade of blue colored plastic than Kingdom Ultra Magnus, and it's like it's showing there, having Ultra Magnus in the background and Delta Magnus in the foreground. That's much closer to the actual different shades of blue plastic used on these two figures. So in hand, you can see the differences much more prominently than my camera's picking them up. The wheels do roll the same way that Ultra Magnus does. Fresh out of the box, the front wheels are sticking in place a little bit, but the wheels on the back of the tractor cab and the wheels at the end of the trailer are spinning much more freely than the front wheels are. And overall, I do enjoy how this figure came out. So for the final question, Ashton, do I recommend you pick up the Shattered Glass Ultra Magnus figure and add it to your collection? Absolutely, I do. Even if you have Kingdom Ultra Magnus, you cannot go wrong having two different versions of this figure in your Transformers collection. Whether or not you want to use this figure for the character that I'm going to use it as, which is Diaclone Delta Magnus, or if you want to use it as the Shattered Glass version of Ultra Magnus, that's your personal preference. If you have enough money and you have the desire and you're OCD about wanting the opportunity to use both head sculpt, hopes you do have the option of buying two copies of this figure if you want to use both have, if you want to use have both Delta Magnus and Shattered Glass Ultra Magnus in your Transformers collection. Thank you guys all so much for watching. This has been the TFA. This is my review of Transformers Shattered Glass Ultra Magnus, a.k.a. Transformers Legacy Diaclone Universe Delta Magnus. And yes, I am going to be using this figure as Delta Magnus from here on out. I'm really thrilled about the extra accessory pieces, and if you hear something like a rattling noise, there is enough. I touched on this a moment ago, but there is enough space inside the tractor cab itself that the Matrix of Leadership can be stored inside there. But again, there's no pegs or ports to actually attach it in place. So hopefully, someone will come up with a third-party upgrade kit that creates a Matrix placeholder for this figure, unless there's already one out there and I'm unaware of it. Thank you guys all so much, and until next time, you guys, stay safe, stay healthy, transform, and roll out. Goodbye, everyone.